Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic conversation. Today, I have with me my beautiful sister, Phyllis Anne Douglass. Welcome, Phyllis. How are you today?
I am doing really well. I'm a little befuddled. I was thinking, what are we talking about? Yes, I'm Phyllis Douglass, and my spiritual name is Vox Angelus Deus, voice of the angel of God. And I have been really just looking at my life lately, going, who am I? Kind of really, you're always, since I've been surrounded by angels since childhood, and I really had no idea why. I didn't, it wasn't something that had any type of description to it or really meaning. It just really was the way things were. and and I was sitting here thinking, well, how did things take on so much definition or meaning as I got older versus just this is just the beautiful way things are, without any interpretation or anything like that. And so, now when I said, oh, I'm just befuddled, it's because so many things are happening and there's so much energy coming in, and my life is defined in the manner that I'm doing what it is that I'm doing, right? But at the same time, I'm also creating. And so I'm looking, I think, for that. I had a tear there. I think I'm looking for that state of being again, where nothing is defined and you just are. And I'm just going to sit here and cry. No, that just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was perfect. It's perfect. It's all perfect. Perfect lead in. So I am curious. I have a lot of questions because I've kind of watched you since I've known you kind of unfold and begin to blossom. But I want to know, you call yourself the architect of light and sound. What does that mean exactly? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be an architect of light and sound?
Well, for me, that really, it's about being a builder and being a creator, and just being a builder and creator of a new reality, and trying to create something or being part of the creation at a higher level of understanding, so that you are in a space to really be able to assist others and to create a new infrastructure for a better world. And I guess really that kind of answers the question in a sense that I'm a builder. And, as an architect, the word architect came from really building new infrastructures, building new architecture, reclaiming old architecture, and creating something new from that, a new form. And all of that is really about creating a new way of being. As my work has been expanding and evolving, that term came to me. There, Elohim was stating, well, you're the architect. And it made sense to me without, my sitting back and trying to figure out what does that mean to define it. But then, of course, I had to think about it even more deeply. Like, how is that aligned with the work that I do? I mean, what am I doing really? Because I started out in sound, sound healing and all of that, and everything has evolved, and I'm no longer doing it in that way. It's just evolved to who I am now. And yes, I'm still using sound, but there was an evolutionary process. Those were just the preparatory beginnings. And, there's people that kind of, they enjoy doing what it is that they are doing. And there isn't an evolutionary process that seems to be happening. Like they're not taking that and developing, allowing it to develop into something other than that or something more than that. But my life has always been like that. My life has always been like, well, you've reached this plateau. This is great. And then stuff just started to happen. And I just started to like evolve out of that. It became bigger, better, more, not, or not that entirely, right? And so for me, yes, I still use sound. I still use my voice. I still use my light language and all of that. But it has evolved into this state where yes, I am the architect because when I am speaking and I am singing, I am seeing like a matrix, or sometimes more like a grid-like matrix of a physical reality or an etheric reality. And well, both really. If I'm looking at like a human body, I'm seeing like a physical architecture. And I'm guided to those areas where there is a distortion. And for some reason, and I guess that's my whole seraphic nature, I realized one day as I'm looking at this architecture that I understand, I know what the true spiritual architecture or the divine template is, what it looks like, how it's constructed. So when I'm looking at someone's architecture, I can see where they are misaligned from their divine architecture, right? Some people call that the spiritual template, the soul blueprint, or the divine template. You know, there's all different types of terms for it. But that's where I am now in that development, and just really understanding when you speak of like from a creational standpoint, I keep going back to and then there was sound. And when that was stated, but then there was creation. And so when I'm looking at what it is that I'm doing, that is like a very beautiful way to kind of define it if I had to, that sound is creation. And when I am singing in light language, I am creating. And I really had to begin to like stand in that space and understand what I'm truly gifted and able, capable of doing, and honor that and just really be that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You mentioned seeing the potentials beyond where you are plateaued, because that's how I've always lived my life. It's always been like, well, if I did this, I can do more. What is that more? And trying to work toward the realization of that. But for somebody who's new to like information like this, the question would come up, what gives you the ability to be able to do these things? What gives you the ability to be able to serve as architect of light and sound? You mentioned your seraphic nature. Do you feel that that is what gives you the ability, the power to be able to do all of these things? And what does it mean for you to be a seraph?
The answer to that question is yes, uh, because I know when I've been told all of my life since I was a little girl that I was an angel in physical form. And and a little bit, maybe several years ago, I was doing something. I remembered my birth. I remembered my entire birth process. And it was funny because from a soul level, I remember, and I don't even know how I remember seeing my mother get in a cab. And, I'd already started, she already felt me coming down the birth canal. And I was kind of like, how did I even know that before she ever told me? I had the whole scene. I saw her run into the hospital. They said she's giving birth. There was like this whole thing. She said she thought she had to go to the restroom. And actually, she was kind of sitting on my head. It was like the pressure of my head coming down. But I remember that for some reason. But of course, I'm in utero. But it was interesting because what I realized was I was in utero, but I wasn't I was anchored, but I wasn't fully ensouled. And so from that level, I was like watching this whole thing go down. And then I remember right before I really started down the birth canal, I was in this brilliant white space. I was surrounded by these other beings, and they were actually thanking me for my willingness to go on kind of this journey, this mission. And that was that I said, well, I will come back into a physical form for this very specific purpose, right? And I remember this brilliant white light. It was like, and then all of a sudden I could feel pressure and I was actually being squeezed down the birth canal. And I remember the brilliant light coming out and I got slapped. I do remember that. I just, and then I just kind of forgot. But I remember up to that point, all of it, the trip to the hospital, like everything. Uh, but they've always told me you're an angel. And, I was raised religiously, and that was not what I heard from people around me. Like, sure, you can be an angel. You know what? I knew that that was not a thing, in a sense, from what I was seeing in my external world. So I just chose not to really engage with that whole idea, and maybe not to believe it, right? But they kept telling me that periodically things would happen, and they said, because you're an angel. People are drawn to you because of your radiance, because you're an angel. You're not even aware of your radiance, type of thing. So it was only literally within the last few years, which sounds ridiculous, but I was doing what I do. But there was some part of me that just didn't truly, I kind of accepted it. Yeah, I'm an angel, whatever. I never told anybody, but there was a part of me that didn't, right? Just didn't want to. And I think part of that is like Keely about, if you state that, there's a responsibility, and then life just gets even more complicated. Like, that's things that you do. That was my sense of it. But then Archangel Michael came to me, and it was a time where I was really actually kind of struggling. I was having a hard time. And he just said, Phyllis, it's time. You need to accept that you are a seraphim in physical form, right? And when you do, life will begin to flow, and that, your more angelic powers will come in, and you will then be able to truly engage with and fulfill your mission in this form. And so that's when I surrendered, right? And life rapidly changed. It was more about, with that true understanding, what happened was just the revealing within myself, the remembrance of things coming forward. Some of it very spectacular, in nature, that isn't in this, I didn't do it in this form, but like this remembrance of things. And it's been kind of it's been a wild ride, but it's been an extraordinary ride since then. And it's just really about acceptance of self. And I've never been in a position, except early on, that I really cared what people thought of me. you know, I'd had some circumstances that happened early on that people said things, and I kind of went, "Ooh, maybe I'm not, maybe I shouldn't be doing that," type of thing. But I knew that was like my whole religious thing, and that it just, at the same time, that can like make you go, "ee," but at the same time, I know that's not true. There was always, all my life, there's been that a part of me that's kept me going, because I knew somehow that what was occurring in my life, it wasn't truth, right? I knew there was another level. I knew I was headed somewhere, but I had no clue. But that just kept me going, and the angels kept me going.
So now I have a question for you because the I mean the fantastical happens, right? But when you are on this journey and you're having such fantastical experiences, how do you affirm for yourself that it's valid, right? That what you are experiencing is actually valid and it further confirms what you are hearing that you are Seraph, right? How do you level set that for your logical mind, the rational mind? How do you level set that so that you can begin to actually allow yourself to live it?
Well, I hear two different things there. Like, is this really valid? But also, is this really real?
Yeah.
Yes. I learned early on with things that happened in my childhood that when I came to the realization that other people were not experiencing this, I wondered kind of what's special about me, because nobody around me was even talking about this. I knew that not to be a thing. So part of me knew then that there's something special about this. There's a reason, right? And things to, memories started to come back and so forth. But I remember my grandmother was making her transition, and she came to me. I remember kind of waking up. After I looked at the clock and it was like 10:30. I was 15 years old. It was 10:30 p.m. And she said, "I'm making my transition from this life, but there's something that you need to know that I hadn't realized about myself." Because she said, "I never knew that I was a seer. But when I'm making my transition, I see that you are a seer, and that is something that you need to know." So she came to tell me I was a seer, right? And she also told me that your father has a ring that he's supposed to give you, a little diamond ring, and he's supposed to give you that when you turn 16. So I was like, oh, whatever. So I went to school the next day and I came home and my dad was home early. And I asked why, and he goes, "Oh, well," he said, "I just my mother passed, last night, and I just wanted you to know your grandma is gone." And I was like, I know." I said, "She came to me last night and said she was making her transition, and she said that you had like a little diamond ring for me that I was supposed to get on my 16th birthday." I was like an open kid, open book, right? And my dad was just like, I don't think well, it was like for 2 days, neither one of my parents really spoke to me. It was just kind of these offhand moments, like really weird, unless they had to. It was really bizarre. And that was one of the times I thought, I'm not going to say anything else. But what I had to realize was the angels have always told me when I was questioning things, it said, "Phyllis, you just have to trust and you have to keep the faith." And I would question things, and they're like, "Phyllis, trust and just keep the faith." So finally, that was so ingrained that I just learned to trust them because they'd never lied. Things happened as they stated it would. I was thinking, if you don't realize that the angels have you back, and if you just think you're crazy all the time, then you're gonna be crazy, right? But there's got to be a reason for this because my entire life has been like this. So I just decided I will trust in everything that I was experiencing. And I've had some amazing, memories, like a memory of millennia ago, whatever, of creating a world, like sitting with other, like creating worlds and doing all this stuff with the energy. But what I realized, these things are coming back because it was really about Phyllis, wake up. This is who you are. This is what you've done in the past. This is what you bring into this time frame, right? Not as blatant as that, but in a more tangible form. uh, but even back then, when I was creating these worlds, when I envisioned myself creating this world, I was thinking, okay, you know, not really wanting to believe it, but also seeing people next to me, people that I'd actually met and knowing, because when I met, it was at the time of Inky. And the woman that was by my side, I met. She was a friend of mine named Allison, and I went, "You were with me back in the time of Enki when we were creating world," and she's like, "Yes." Whatever. We remembered each other. So that is kind of how bizarre my life is. Um, but I just realized, especially after getting married and so forth, and all of this, I wasn't who I am now when I got married either. I mean, I did spiritual things, and I did energy work and so forth. So there's been an evolutionary process, and I'm a different person in that sense. Different, not different. But I was thinking, I would tell my husband things, and I was like, if I can't believe this, then I just have to stop doing it, right? Because you think if at one point in time you began to believe that I'm not sure if this is reality or not, then you're just going to get wrapped up in a straitjacket and hauled out. Right? So my whole life, and this has been my life, right? This is the evolution of my life. And the more that you actually dive into it and you you're being that, you're doing that, you realize this is real, right? Yeah, this is real.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You said something that I hadn't considered in the way that you spoke it, and that was the remembrance of these things surfaces to show us what we are capable of. Because on the one hand, I've experienced those memories come up, but I just kind of observe them as memories, right? But not necessarily pulling what I'm witnessing as an ability that can be realized now. I haven't thought of it in those terms. So that's a,
Well, and it doesn't even have to be realized in that sense. It's not like something you have to go seeking or something you have to figure out. Those
yeah.
things come forward because, okay, here I am creating a world. They're like, here you are now in
Hmm.
2025, you can create a world.
Yeah.
It's it's a gift, it's a capability that you have. No one can take it away from you, but you have to understand it and you have to allow it to be revealed from within you. It's there, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's like you have to believe
Right.
you can do that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then
I
you can.
know.
I mean, I think that's one of the amazing things. I know that you as well are Seraph. And the thing is that we get into these situations where we're like, I don't understand the situation. I don't really know what's going on, but I know I'm supposed to be here. I'm told to be here. I don't know what I'm going to do. What's happening? It was like I had, okay, I will tell this. I had this client, and I said, well, why are you here? Like in this session. And so she started to tell this story, and I'm thinking, well, wait. No, I said, how was that defined for you? Is that your own belief? Is that something someone told you? And so she told me this story, and then I was able to track it. And I'm like, oh. So then I'm always asking, what am I doing? And Archangel Michael came in, and he was just standing behind me, but he wasn't helping. He was just standing behind me. And I had this knowing, I said, well, I think that you've expressed the key thing, the key reason for this session. So that's our focus, right? We're going to clear that. Whatever. Did I know how? Had no idea. I never know, but I know. There's I think that, and that's where that it's like I can hear that voice saying, Phyllis, you have to trust and you have faith. Because not everything we know fits into this little brain, this mind, right? It's more like a morphic field thing, right? And whatever else, we have a way of being able to capture whatever it is, whatever we need, the tools that we need, the resources we need to take care of a situation. But I went back because I remember, and it was all about architecture. and looking at the architecture and seeing where those energies were entwined that did not belong to her and all of that. And so I did this whole transmission. It was quite powerful, quite demanding. And I thought I need a nap after this, but just because I was shell shocked as to what I myself had been capable of doing in that situation. And so, and you wonder when you're doing these things what the experience is of, because I was like enraptured and all this stuff, right? Wondering what the client was experiencing. And so, I always say we are complete and we're all settled, and I'm kind of looking at her and I'm breathing heavy. And I said, well, what was your experience? She was like, I, that was so powerful. I've never ever felt anything like that. And the energy coursing through my body, like, and all of this stuff. And I think the key thing when I state that, the key reason that I just decided to accept myself and my gifts and the fact that I can help people, I can facilitate healing, I can facilitate transformation, isn't based upon my beliefs or anything that's happening. It's based upon the client and their response and what it does within their life. That's what I've really had to look at in order to believe what it is that I do. And I know that sounds kind of funny because I just what I know what I do and some of what you do, because I've witnessed what you do, isn't necessarily tangible. It is not. And so sometimes you're just doing it because that's what you do, right? And you're thinking, am I really helping people? Am I, what the heck is this, right? And then someone comes back to you and says, you just changed my life. You just did this happened, that happened. That is what has actually really over the years given me confidence in what it is that I do and what it is I choose to share.
Yeah, that's profound and beautiful. I um I wonder, do you at times get caught up in the story? Do you go along with the story? Because what I've come to realize is that it's not about the story. Like the story is just how it surfaces for the person, the individual who may be coming to you. But really, it's about the energies involved and how you respond, how you are equipped, I guess, for lack of a better word, to respond to the energies at play. How do you see what they present to you versus what you are responding to? I guess that's how to ask that.
Yeah, I do not respond to stories any longer because that's a distraction for me. Um, and I'm empathetic and all of that too. And I had to get to the point where I ask people at the very beginning, first I will tell them this is what we do, and I'll ask them why they're here. And so they will generally launch into a story of some sort. When they launch into the story, what it does is it amplifies or highlights the energies within their architecture that are connected to that story, right? I don't care about the story. That's their story, not mine. But that story is also woven or written into their etheric and their physical and their energetic architecture, right? So from there, I push the story aside because it's just their way of verbalizing their feelings or emotions and what is happening, what they've experienced. But when you look at someone's architecture, like the energetic architecture, the entire experience is there. So when I earlier said, well, I understand what it's supposed to look like. I understand what their divine template is supposed to look like. So from there, I'm guided to the areas that are out of configuration, right? And so then I'm just working with the frequency, altering the frequencies and whatever it is that needs to be done, shifting things, clearing whatever out. But I don't know why it's there. I don't need to know why it's there. I just need to bring it into balance as best I can. And then I move on to the next thing. So it's really about bringing someone back into balance or homeostasis within them. They're the greatest healers and they're the greatest teachers. But the reason that they may not be healing properly is just because there's a disorganization in their frequency, their energetic structure. When you actually alter that, when you change that, then it's like, wait, what? Like it's like something starts to evolve, something shifts because it's no longer in resonance with, say, dis-ease. It's no longer in resonance with whatever challenge that they were having, which means there's something new afoot, right? And they just start to work with that. There is just they're working from a higher vibrational level, and so that's what creates change.
Yeah, beautifully stated. I think it's so fascinating how we all work in different ways because I'm not as visual as you are. What I do is I can feel it. I can feel those distortions in the field rather than seeing them illuminated, by light or whatever. But that kind of leads into embodiment and what embodiment and ascension actually is. And you were the first person I ever heard speak to ascension as a descension of the soul, which makes so much sense because that's what it really is. It's bringing the divine into form. It's grounding the divine into form, right? Can you speak to that perspective a little bit? Because I think it's a counter approach to what humanity is collectively going through at the moment.
Well, I mean, originally, 2,500 years ago or something, it was all about like ascending. You'd see, have the yogis, you'd have the gurus, and all of this, and it was really about accumulating this light, this energy, and ascending to some new form outside of this physical body. They leave the physical body behind. So everyone always has that interpretation, and religiously speaking. Um, yeah, we're going to leave this body. We transition to God type of thing. Well, yeah, that is an ascension. If you just the physical body dies, and so your energetic body just transitions, your light body, right? But we are being requested and have been for a time to really create a new world. It is about our physical ascension. It is about our ascending within physical form. And so our I am presence is coming down, anchoring, rooting that aspect of us, not all of it because it's big, but that aspect of us is rooting into this physical form. And from that period, we are then, we emanate that outward. Our experience is, I'm trying to think of the word because it totally went out of my head. We're living from a heightened experience from our I am presence versus that human presence that has really been enslaved in old beliefs, old patterns, and old paradigm. And so when that we start to contain more and more light, it's like what Elohim had said, you're like a goblet, like a chalice. That sounds a little more romantic. You're like a chalice. So you have like a cup of this goblet or this chalice, and it comes to like the base of your neck. The body is like the stem of the chalice, and then your feet are like the base that's anchored to the earth. And so light fills the chalice through the crown, through our crown portal, and through because we all have a like in the old Baroque paintings, we have a halo. And when everything is engaged, we literally do have a halo of light around our head. So the light comes into the goblet and then it has to go down the stem, down through the physical body, and it's pressurized then because it narrows, right? And so as it comes down, as a light comes down, everything that's not in alignment with that has to go somewhere and it has to leave. So that's when, if you think if it was filled with champagne, the bubbles come up and they pop. So I like to envision like all these old beliefs bubbling up and they hit the surface and they pop and they're dispersed, right? We have to release all the old patterns, all the old beliefs, all the old thought forms, all of that. And so that makes room for more light to come down. So when we are fully illumined within this physical form, our I am presence can thusly anchor, right? And so that is what's considered ascension. And all of the other beings that exist out there, all the other planets and so forth, They can't fully reach their full state of ascension until we do, which is why we have so much assistance now. Yeah, there's so much assistance of energies coming down to humanity, and people channeling different things, and different teachings are coming forward, and different modalities are coming, being are coming forward to just always assist people to really accept their spiritual energetic nature, to assist people to kind of step onto and travel that path towards a spiritual awakening and spiritual ascension.
Yeah, beautiful. So now here's the thing. So I have been in recognized, I have acknowledged and recognized that I am embodying more light. But that hasn't been all airy fairy and feeling good, right? Now I'm starting to feel that physically. So I'm having to make like massage, like deep tissue massage a regular thing because I am feeling that burn. I can feel that light come in and I can feel it literally purging, purifying, burning away the stuff that can't stay. What you call bubbles. That sounded really great compared to what I feel or how I am feeling it. How do you experience that? How have you experienced that influx of light?
Sometimes very subtle, and sometimes it just seems extraordinarily painful and almost traumatic. And usually, when it seems extraordinarily painful and traumatic, I am not in alignment with my truth. I'm engaged with something other, right? When you are in alignment energetically with your truth, it's much easier. That flows much easier. If you are buttoned up against it all the time and there's friction, it's not going to stop that from happening. But that's when you just start having a challenge. That's when pain comes in. You get headaches, you get joint aches. I was asking this just now when you were talking, and the thing was, when we go back to biblical times, people lived longer. They're they were much, they were much more, they had more stability structurally in their bodies. And of course, there was like the whole religious thing too. We're not built the same any longer because I'm trying to verbalize this, what I know. We're not built in a structural way any longer to hold that capacity of light because we hadn't done it for so long, right? And so what's happening is our body is being restructured, our nervous system is being recalibrated. Uh, and that's where I have most of the challenges was my nervous system, right? So there's a nervous system recalibration that happens because you have to be able to hold more and more light, and it's like electromagnetic. I think it's electricity, right? Uh, we have geomagnetic forces that are a little bit different, heavier based, but we have light, electricity, right? That's coming down. And years ago, I was told, well, your body is like a battery. So from the heart up, it's positive charge. And from the heart down, it's a negative charge, like a battery. And so you have geomagnetic forces. You're rooted, right? You're weighted. And so I always envision like the, man walking on the moon in the heavy boots. So you're becoming weighted, you're becoming rooted to the earth. And then from the heart up, it's like, oh, we've got this. It's the light, right? And so when we think about it, it's really, we're like a tree. So, the physical form is like a tree, and rising from the crown portal are like these branches reaching high and wide. And from the bottoms of our feet are these roots reaching wide and deep, right? And that's really how our infrastructure is being built, right? So for so long, since I was kind of born awake in that sense, I had been wandering around in like this high-rise building that didn't have a solid foundation. So I remember maybe like 6 years ago, I was told to involve myself with this community, a channel with Elohim, because there were some things energetically to be shared with me. Not that I didn't know them, but there were things that would help me build my structure. And I was with them for like 3 years, and that's really why. Because I was feeling rooted, because I was like a little helium balloon all the time, just flying around, and you can't be to truly anchor in light to this reality, to this earth, to this planet. You have to be rooted. You have to root your spirituality. You have to root your light. And that's the descension. That's, I like to say, I am enlightened. You're becoming enlightened into this beautiful, rooted, solid vehicle. And so a lot of people are going through infrastructure changes, right? Um, they might have had some shoddy brickwork done. And so now that's the way I felt. I just felt like this whole structure was being built in order to stabilize the high-rise building that was me. And now and now I can feel that and understand that. And that's how they shared it to me. Yeah, you're like a high-rise building. Um, so I kind of worked backwards a little bit. I've always been up there, and I had to come backwards, and I had to come back down and anchor and root.
Yeah, same. Same. I connected the dots with that. I didn't even realize that that's how I was operating until I had a friend tell me that we were here to actually be human. And I was like, what? Like that makes it sound so simple, and it's something I felt like I was already doing, but until she said it in the way that she said it, I never connected the dots because I was always trying to be this divine, this divine thing, this divine expression. I was like, oh, I'm here to be human. And in that moment, I gave myself permission to actually settle. And I could see myself, like looking over the past years, I can see myself settling into form. It's an interesting thing.
You say that it's interesting, and I was kind of like the same way a little bit,
Mm.
because I was always up there. And you said you're supposed to be human. I have never had an easy time being human. And so the way around it was because I realized, oh, I'm all right, I'm a seraphim angel. I'm in this physical form. So when I had to change it to, okay, I'm living a life in a human form, because I've never ever been able to classify myself in my life as ever being comfortable being human. Because and this is the first time I've ever said that, but it is so true. And I'm realizing it now. When I could actually understand, okay, I'm seraphim, there's all of this, right? And I'm settled into this human form because I have a mission. I have something to do, right? I'm here for a reason. Before that, I was just having a real challenge in my life. I couldn't even, I had all these majors and stuff. I ended up becoming a dancer because it was the only way that I could actually create something and be satisfied in it when I was on stage. When I was doing choreography, it was just me. I was able to be me. I was able to be who it is that I am. So I've always been in the arts, even like creating art and so forth. Okay, I can be who I truly am. And you're in that, in my dance career, in my art and everything that I've done, I've always been a conduit for that divine light that would be able to show itself in my performance, in my choreography, in my music, in my art. But when it came to just being a human, especially as a kid, when I was just like, not really, I was a kid, but I wasn't really a happy kid, and I never felt like I belonged. I just when I was older, my sister said she thought she was being funny and brutal, and she said, you were adopted. And to me, I was like, thank God. I literally was so happy that I'd been adopted because it was like, it was the answer. It made me feel good. That's okay. I'm adopted. That's why I don't feel like I belong. But there's still that whole thing about, you come into a physical form, you come into a specific family, because that family, the familial bonds and the ancestry of that family are always in alignment with what it is that you need to learn and what it is you came here to do. So when I was able to look back through my father's line and my mother's line, I found that there were all manner of people doing energetic work. They're, mediums and witch doctors and voodoo priestesses. Like, there's all of this. So I'm realizing that's a line of energetics, DNA wise, and that I came into. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason you make those choices of like which family you're coming into. But it didn't help. But I just felt like I was an alien all my life. Yeah.
I
And
think
I hear
that's
other people have said that, and I was just like, I'm just coasting along in this family, and I'm just like, I don't understand. Love my family dearly, but and I tried to be that. It was like, it felt, and I was that, but it just felt weird. It was like trying to pound a square peg into a round hole.
yeah, yeah,
I got a lot of
yeah.
dents on my sides because
Yeah. I think many of us have that feeling because I can remember feeling like that as a kid. Like I never fit in one place or another. Yeah. Being different. Yeah. Yeah. So since I've known you, I've kind of watched you surrender and mellow out and get into the space where you are seemingly enjoying it and having fun in the process. What has that journey been like for you? What has been your greatest lesson on this journey of surrendering more deeply to you?
for me, it really came down to surrendering to the truth of who I am, and what I'm here to do, right? What I'm here to accomplish, what I'm capable of. When because I lost myself there for a while, because I was just like this giggly, bubbly, quirky person and just very authentic. And I've always tried to be kind of raw and authentic. But over the years, I finally got myself back, right? And I hadn't really, it came to a point where I didn't realize it was gone. I wasn't very happy, really. I mean, I was doing the thing, right? But there was a dissatisfaction there a little bit. But basically, when Archangel Michael gave me that kind of ultimatum, like, you're Seraphim. If you don't want to agree with it, then, why are you here? It was kind of like that. When I surrendered to that, it was just like everything opened up. And who I truly am, like my joy came back, right? My personality came back because it was just a joy, just like when I went on stage to perform and not be that person. I could be who I truly am. My surrendering brought me into this full state of allowance of just freedom, right? To be who I am. And there's never been a like, I don't care what people think. Because most people that I don't care what they think, they're not in the same space that I'm in anyway, right? So, so it's just kind of like I realize I could be free to be me. I'm choreographing my life. I've always been in the study. It was Toltec shamanism for many, many years. But it was the reason I settled on Toltec shamanism because it was really about finding my medium and all that. And I finally, the last several years, when I surrendered to who I am and my gifts began to like really unfold and I was doing the thing, in the way I'm meant to do it, I realized I am back on this stage. I'm this choreographer, I'm this dancer, and I'm moving through life in a way that I am creating. And it's like this beautiful energetic, I'm doing this beautiful energetic flow. So it's just like that. I'm choreographing my life, and then I'm the lead dancer, right? And I'm creating this life as art. And so the more everything that I do, I envision it as this beautiful work of art that is facilitating change in other people. And that's really what artists have done. You know, they create a painting or they create a sculpture because they want people that see it to just go, oh my gosh, and they're affected, right? Their heart opens and all of this. Well, I think when it comes down to it, that's what we are doing in a very powerful sense, that we are creating this work of art through our sound, our song, through our light language, and all of that. We are creating this beautiful composition that then is affecting people that are participating in what we're doing, or affecting our family or the people closest to us, or whatever. And I think that's why I sat down a couple times and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Because I would be in this lull, like I'm in a cocoon, because I've always had these preparatory things happening or unfolding processes where I'm integrating and just assimilating a new way of being for myself, a higher rate of being. And for me, it's like shifting to higher octaves, right? And I just, I would ask that question, and all I would ever hear is, Phyllis, create. Just keep creating. And so I took that to heart. And so my creations have gotten bigger and bigger and to what they are now. And the more that you create and the more that you get kind of tied into your medium and you get into that flow, whatever your medium is, you begin to embody it. You are it. You become it. And I think that's where the most explosive change in my work has happened, is because I began to embody it and become it. And in so doing, it evolved and became something bigger and broader and more expansive.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Life as art, creating life as art. Yeah. Wow. Life is the medium. Consciousness is the medium. It's wow. That's
Yeah.
profound. That's a profound thought. Wow. When I've done these conversations, I've done quite a few so far. And one theme that runs through all the conversations is the power of observation, the necessity to observe the self. What role would you say being observant of life in general, assessing life in general, has played in your experience?
Well, for me, when you say that, what comes to mind is observing from that higher space of perception what is going on around me, what is going on in the world, and being able to perceive those areas that you feel like you could connect to, that you could actually do something good, that you could actually help in that situation. I had to come to a point where the observation wasn't like I'm observing something and all of a sudden I'm in it, right? And there's, I have people say, I'm like an empath and all of that, and you get absorbed in it. Well, you can't do the same level of work, if anything, um, that's really truly beneficial if you're in it with those you're trying to help, right? It doesn't work. You need to be able to stand outside of it and be able to observe it from that higher perspective, because then okay, this is happening, that's happening. I can help. And this is how I can help, because you have that broader view. You can actually see what's going on. When you're in it, you can't really see what's happening, right? You're stuck in kind of the emotionality of it and all of that. So I have learned now not to do that. To a point, you can empathize, but you stand back and it's like, how can I be of service to this? Right. And so that's what I've adopted, to be able to sit back, because that's how I can really help then. And when I can perceive something in that way, I didn't watch the news for the longest time, but now news reports come to me and I know I need to watch it, because I need to understand what's happening, because there's a lot happening, right? If you just don't pay attention to it, how are you going to actually be of assistance if you don't have an understanding of what's actually going on? If you're not able to see the different levels, what's happening as things are building, right? Um, so that's really what it comes down to, like my observing what's happening. So within my observance, I will be told, all right, you have a mission, right? Or you need to do this type of thing. And then I'll know, yeah. And then I'll do what I'm guided to do, right?
Do you see life being a reflection of you?
Well, life is always a reflection of who it is that you are, especially within your sphere. Those that you hold around you are going to reflect back to you who you are. So that's always been like a guidance to me, like an understanding of what I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, or what I'm feeling, that why am I feeling this way? Why am I acting out in this way? Type of thing. That would be more of that's what I'm thinking of when you're stating like a reflection, because life is a reflection. As a creator, you're creating what's surrounding you as well, right? That's a creation, right? Your relationships are a creation, right? Everything that happens, how your life evolves, what happens in your life, that's a creation. And who it is that you are, what it is that you're doing, the thought processes that you have, your actions are what are creating, or that's the reflection of what you're creating outside of yourself, is a reflection of who it is that you are and what it is that you're doing. Right? Yeah. So I can kind of look out at my sphere. And so, as a creator, I can change something within myself or energetically in order to lead by an example and to change what I see reflected back to me. Does that make sense?
Does. It does. It does. It does. With that, along those same lines, how do you see the importance of community, right? The importance of community, the importance of having I guess, a circle, for lack of a better word, wherein to share um, your experiences. Do you see that as a necessity? I'm asking because I feel like that fluctuates for me. Like at some points, it seems like that circle is big and then it gets exceedingly small, to almost non-existent, and then it expands itself again. Do you see that as being an important aspect of your journey?
Yes and no. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like years ago, the teacher I had at the time, we were talking, and he said, Phyllis, you've come to a level where this is a lonely journey. Yeah. And it's not that you're alone, but it is a lonely journey. Because when you think about it, you are doing what it is that you do in the way that you do it, right? Um, so at times I have sought out community, but then quickly, generally, I would leave that community because it wasn't in we weren't vibing and we weren't at the same level. So I would expand and grow and shift. What I'm being guided to say, there are different communities. There are communities that get together that never grow and develop into anything else. They're just stuck in that community, sharing with each other, right? And that's fine. That's a beautiful thing. Then there are communities you can get involved with that are progressive, right? They are exceedingly progressive. They're growing, they're expanding. They want people within the group to grow and expand, and they're assisting each other, and um, those are more the communities that have been kind of really helpful because I have belonged to communities where I'm like, why am I here? It's not positively fueling me. It's not helping me to grow and expand and to become who it is I'm meant to be. Right? There's not an evolutionary process that's occurring. So then I'm guided to leave that community. So like I don't join communities in that sense anymore, but my sisters, like yeah, we find each other. What I've discovered that the true community are like the soul groups that kind of come together. And when I was within that large community for 3 years, it came time when I received what it is that I needed. I was guided to leave. I didn't. So it was like brutal when I finally did leave because I just didn't want to. They were my friends, right? We were doing all this, and they're like, you have to look at it from this perspective. You are doing all of these things and you are utilizing your gifts throughout all of these things that you're doing for this person to expand their work, their community. What about what it is that you yourself are here to do? And I was like, I understood then. So I finally did like leave, and my reason for leaving when I said, it's just time for me to really focus and allow my own work to evolve and expand. Funny, they didn't really like that, um, but I had to. And when I did, I was in when I those 3 years with that group, I felt kind of dead in the water. I was learning stuff. I did receive, yes, but it came to a point where I just felt dead in the water, and my own life, my work was just not really happening. And I understood that when they said that. When I left, it was almost like bam, stuff started to flow in, opportunities. I was not, I had to leave in order to really step in my own flow. And when I did that, opportunities came in, and my own expansion happened. And that's what I needed. So throughout my own expansion, I met you, and I met Ashunike, and I met all these people, and we just kind of I've met people, and I do have my own group that the Daughters of Eternal Light, who really are like pillars of light for the missions that I do. And everyone in that group has become friends and so forth as well. But we're groups, we're friends and so forth, but we're a group with like this higher purpose. But we're all utilizing our gifts and weaving it into that higher purpose. Whereas a lot of groups, it's like you are the support system for A. Right? Easy. But you yourself don't have that support to do what it is that you are meant to do or to become who it is that you are meant to become, right? So you have to pay attention to that if that's really what you're consciously understanding about your own evolutionary process. So what I've discovered is though that people have come into my life, and it's like I know that you're Seraph. I know Shunik is Seraph. And then come into my life, there's someone else that I know they're Seraph. So it's like we're finding each other within that quote kind of soul group aspect because there's higher purpose in our coming together at times to do something as we witnessed ourselves, right? In our work.
Yeah.
And we help each other. I think we all have different skills, and when we need each other, we help each other to evolve. It's like, oh, that's what I needed. Thank you. And then bam, something else happens. So I think we're helping each other um, expand and grow with greater purpose.
That's beautifully stated. I have been experiencing that. The realizations that it's time to let some things go so that I can bloom, right? So that I can bloom because I see where things aren't serving me. But there's that human side of me that says, I'll be alone. I'm leaving them. Like
Mhm.
I'm severing a tie that has been beneficial in its own right, but it's no longer serving the me that I am evolving into. So
Mhm.
it's having to make those tough decisions, at least tough from my perspective.
I had to understand, and the angels are always telling me, you're here to have experience after experience after experience. You're not
Mm,
here to allow an experience that you have to define you in any way, shape, or form. So I had to look back at the rest of my life and these groups and so forth. They were an experience. I learned from that experience. And a lot of experiences I've had have just really solidified who I am and why I'm here and what it is I desire to do and what I desire not to do or what's not in alignment. You have these teachings. So I look at it from, it's just an experience. And it's time to move on, to take that experience, what you've learned, and to move on to the next bigger and better experience. And it is bigger and better. I thought the same thing. I was like, but they're friends and they're fun. And and, but you have to realize when you are guided to leave, there's a challenge with resonance. You're at a higher resonance and you're no longer, there's friction, and that's what always causes that you need to leave now, you need to move on. So I've had to honor that, and that's been quite beautiful, because when I stepped through that next door, I was like, oh cool. This is what I've been missing. It's really been kind of like that. So now I trust when I'm guided that to leave something behind. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And I go because I know I have to. This is a path. I mean, this life is a journey, and you're not supposed to just stop and stay somewhere forever, right? So when I'm called to move on, that's part of my trusting and having faith that it's for my highest good, and thusly the highest good of those whom I meet, right? Yeah.
yeah, nice. That's beautiful. Now you mentioned the missions. How do you receive these missions, and what do you do in these missions with the group, with the Daughters of
Well, I've
Rekindled?
done, yeah, now it's as the missions have gotten bigger and more intensified as far as the amount of light energy I have to consume, right? Um, I was told by Elohim that it was time to gather a group of women, and we shall call it, they said, the Daughters of Eternal Light. So they told me, and then they told me who to invite. Right. And so I would just see the image of the person. I saw the image of you in my head, and I said, "So you want to?" So, and old clients that I knew that were doing like high level work and so forth, I invited them, and they all just got this hit, like, yes, I I will join. And so that has helped me, because there's those pillars of strength, and I feed from that, and I'm able to travel further, and I'm able to have the higher resources to do what I need to do. But before I would be guided on smaller missions and things. Um, I did some by myself, and it was just really a training ground for me. Like I would kind of leave my body and I would be seen through the eyes of my light body, and I would do something. It's only been the last couple of years that I've actually bilocated to different areas. Um, but yeah, the missions, I had a few missions where my old teacher in the group, I said, well, I have this mission and I would like to gather a little group, as I would call it, witnessing, right? As I did this. And that was a training ground too, right? And doing this work, how I'm doing this work, how I'm being transported, what I'm seeing, how I'm seeing it, all of that. I realized that it was uh it was a training ground. So often I would get called to situations, in the beginning. I would get called to situations where, like, there was a natural catastrophe. There were a lot of people that died. They didn't know they died, and I would go and I would guide them through the gates, and so I would do simple things like that. That was part of my training ground. And then I started to have missions where I needed to go with my skill set, right? I needed to go actually do something. I think my first one with my small group, I went to uh, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and I activated. And I've been told for a few years you need to go. And I thought I'm gonna at some point hop on a plane and I'm gonna go. And finally they said, no, you're going to go from remote, because uh, a lot of Göbekli Tepe was supposed to actually be unburied more so. They were going a little slow. So they said, no, you're going to go remotely because one, they wouldn't allow you in to do this work. So I went at night, dark of night, and I was there, and I bilocated there, and there were different areas that hadn't been discovered yet where I activated it, and then they were soon discovered, which was kind of funny. But I had to go activate it, and came back, and so things started to happen and evolve, which was kind of interesting. Um, and a couple others that I really can't state what I can say part of like the key one I think for me was I had to go to a certain location and release what you would call a demon that had been bloodlet that had been brought in oh thousands of years ago in what was then an old temple. And I was like, I didn't quite believe it. I didn't quite like believe it. They were telling me, no, there's a demon down in the old construct structures of this space. And so I said, don't ever say this. I said, prove it. I know, I located, and I'm in this old rough-hewn stone structure, and there's this thing in front of me. It was chained by all four legs, and they were like these old kind of oil, like some kind of skunk. There's light. I don't know where that was coming from, but there was light in there, and it smelled horrible. It was really rank, um, and it reminded me of from where the wild things are, the big-headed. So all of a sudden, this thing turned and just blew on me, and the hairs went up on my arm, and I went, "So yeah, it's real. It's here." And so I said to it, I said, I will be back within the next 7 days and I will release you. And then I was brought back because they wanted me to release it. Um, and I was like, all right, what do I do? So they tell me what I need to do. And at the time, I needed to recreate elements of the place I was going to so that I would bilocate into the proper location with what I needed, right? So I created all of that and I had the group kind of witness. So I at that time I was bilocated back and I was singing. There was a whole architecture. I was singing and doing this stuff, and I had some kind of tool, and I just pop. I released all of the chains from this thing, and it was lumbering. It was huge, and then I opened up a rift in reality there. And on the other side of it was where he had come from, where he'd been conjured from. And so it just kind of came by and it turned and looked at me and I was like, and it telepathically stated, I thought all was lost, was the statement. So then I'm like in tears. And so it went through and I closed the rift and then I came back. Yeah. And
Wow.
so to me, I'm kind of like, this stuff is real. I'm
Right.
getting like I'm doing these things. And I'm like, if it gets to the point where if you yourself don't believe it's real,
Yeah.
you got a problem. You got a problem. Yeah, I think that's kind of where people get into spiritual overload and they go a little crazy, whatever else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Now that brings up a question because I know somebody is going to be thinking it. If it was a demon, why would you set it free? Why would you let it go?
It's what people called a demon.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was a negative being, but it was only negative when it was brought into our reality. And it was brought into our reality because of what it was capable of doing. So for it fed upon the undercurrent of negativity in our society. It would feed upon that. And then it would expel more, which was interesting. And so you're talking about more of a spiritual, metaphysical type of what it energetically did. But when it went home, I knew that, I mean, it had a lot of hatred, let me tell you. I was rolling off of it, but not towards me, which was interesting. Um, well, because I guess I was there in the first place, but not towards me. But you know, when it was going by and I saw it going home, it wasn't thought, and it wasn't of that nature of being when it was home.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. You bring in they've brought in different things into our reality because they want to enslave it, and it has a particular gift
Mm.
our nature of being that that suits us, right?
Yeah.
Humanity. So, and that's really what it was. It wasn't a bad being.
Hmm.
Smelled horrible, but it wasn't a bad being. Uh, but well, I think that was only because it was kept there. It had actually been there 1,000 years
Wow. Wow.
with no contact.
Yeah.
And the only reason, okay, now these beings actually are in our society, different beings, but the only reason I was able to release this one was because nobody was alive now that remembered it was there. And so you think about that, I'm like, poor thing. I felt so sorry for it. Yeah. But yeah, so after that one made a believer out of me. So it just had to, you know, it was just, yeah, it was kind of interesting. So after that one, that was like the key, the big one where the missions started to be more complicated and more energy because I knew I could do what I needed to do, whatever it was. Um, and then that's when the Daughters of Eternal Light were formed.
And you asked me to join, and within like a week or two, I got a download talking about the Daughters of Eternal Light, and I'm like, "Oh, this is real!" Like, like I thought it was just a name that you probably came up with, just the name you
No, no,
came
that's
up
what they
with, and I
called
was
us.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is legit." Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works out. So, so as we prepare to close, I have one last question for you.
Hmm.
As you perceive it now, in this moment, what awaits Phyllis as you move deeper into self?
Greater capacity for creating change.
Mm,
Yeah. Not only within my own life, but within the world as it stands. Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful. Any last words? Anything you want to share? Anything you
Now,
got coming
the key
up?
thing I would want to share is do not be afraid of who it is that you are or who it is that you desire to be, and just allow yourself to be who it is you desire to be.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter what people think of you, because if they don't think of it, if they don't treat you positively, then those are people that don't belong in your life. They are not in resonance. So just stand within your own vibe, your own vibrational essence, and just be who it is that you are, because you will begin to magnetize those whom appreciate who it is that you are into your life. Yeah.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful
Mhm. This went in a
conversation.
totally different.
No, I told you.
I had no idea I was just going to be so raw and nothing. Brought me to tears. No, yeah.
They said, "Don't tell her. Don't give her any heads up. Just be in the moment, and this is where we're going." So, yeah,
Yeah, and we went. So thank you
we
very much. I
did.
appreciate that. That was very cathartic,
Nice,
maybe in a way,
beautiful,
actually. Yeah, and I
beautiful.
think it brought something within me into balance that kind of needed to go there because I didn't really want to think about it
Yeah,
or understand it. But then now I'm like, I came to an understanding. I'm like, oh, just within myself, I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
Nice.
So beautiful,
Nice.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for drawing that out of me.
Yeah.
It just kind of came out of as a topic. I'm like, okay, here we go. This is where we're going. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
beautiful,
Nice.
beautiful. Thank you.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. So that's it. That's a wrap.
All right, my dear. Well, thank you so
Nice.
much.
Hear us. Our presence carries with it the emanation of divine light, the omnipotent, omniscient omnipresence, which, of the very nature of its being, sustains all life as life itself. Of this, know, our presence is not without cause. Our presence not without purpose. For our being wills to light the way of highest realization for the whole. Our light is our being. As divine presence, we are here as the eternal light and life which colors our world. Open on all levels, across all planes, through all dimensions. Divine light is without fear. Divine light is without prejudice. Divine light, of which we live and breathe, is our being. Grant yourself permission to know. We of the All are the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient divine force as unique expressions of love. We of the All are eternal liberation for all that binds. And we of the All are not veiled. Know us. Know thyself.